All right, it's the B Block Podcast. Brandon Scott, your host here, and we got a dub. Got a dub, H-Town. How you feeling? Got a win in Indy, man. I'm old enough to remember when it was impossible to win in Indianapolis. When you would go up there, back when Peyton Manning was running the game, even back in some of the Andrew Luck days, when it was just like impossible. It felt impossible. Even after they had finally gotten their first win in Indianapolis, there was a time where it just felt impossible to win a game there. And now it's been a long time since it felt that way. You go up there now expecting to dominate, especially with CJ Stroud at quarterback. You go up there expecting to have a really good showing. They've had a really good recent history in Indianapolis, and that continues with the Texans win over the Colts. Gotta love it if you're a Texans fan. Gotta love it if you're from Houston and you're looking at the Texans and trying to figure out, can they win the division? Can they get into the playoffs? We talked about that a lot on the podcast. We're going to talk about it plenty here today. They win 20-16. And look, it was not perfect. There's plenty to look at and complain about and dissect and question and wonder about. But you got to be happy with a win. And I think you even got to be happy with, even if it wasn't the most style points or it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing game, I think you got to be happy with how you won, with the fact that you were able to go out there and close the game out, especially with your defense. And I think that that's the main story of the game. We'll get to the defense in just a second, but I do feel like the fact that CJ Stroud made his return, that is kind of the headline, the big headline of the game. And like, how did CJ Stroud look? How did CJ Stroud perform? And he had kind of a blase stat line. Stat line was just, man, kind of mid. And of course, he had the one ball that he sailed that led to the interception, which was costly at the time. That did end up costing them points. But I thought he otherwise looked pretty good out there. He made several throws, both from the pocket and on the move, that for me leave no doubt about him as, I think, a high level starter in this league. We can be critical of CJ Stroud, I think rightfully so at times, but really ever since that San Francisco game, and I would even just go ahead and throw this game in there as another one of his good games, even if it wasn't, again, as aesthetically pleasing, even if it wasn't like an incredible statistical game. I think that he showed you enough in this game, again, both inside the pocket and on the move with some of his throws, that while you can be critical of him, you should be critical of him at times. It's because he's really good. It's because he is that good. So CJ Stroud, not a great stat line in this game, but I thought maybe he was 22 of 35, 276 yards. Of course, had the interception, no touchdowns. But overall, I thought played winning football for you, minus the interception, played winning football for you. But with that being said, the defense is really the headliner. Like, outside of the our quarterback crazed society, football society of today, I think the defense is once again the headliner in this game. When you think about the fact that Jonathan Taylor, the best running back in the game right now, was held in check, 21 carries, 85 yards on 21 carries. Had a couple of pretty good runs, had 112 yarder, but for the most part was held in check by this defense. I thought that was critical for. I think when Kalen Bullock was on, I don't know what show it was on, if it was one of the NFL Network shows or what it was, but Kalen Bullock was on and kind of in a real candid way said that stopping Jonathan Taylor was the key, that there wasn't much else outside of Jonathan Taylor that was really going to hurt them, that they didn't have much that could hurt them on this offense, which is not true, by the way. I think it's a really well-rounded offense, especially when Daniel Jones is playing well. But I would agree with the strategy of we hold Jonathan Taylor in check and force Daniel Jones and everybody else to beat us, and we like our chances. And I said that I think on the podcast and on the radio last week that I thought that was a key to the game, at least defensively, was keying in on Jonathan Taylor, daring Shane Steichen to run Jonathan Taylor against stacked boxes, and just trying to bow up as best you can against the weapons on the outside and the stuff that they like to do in the middle of the field. They like to do a lot of different things in their passing game. So, like, just kind of being ready for that, trusting your defensive backs to be ready for that. And in this game, aside from Alec Pierce, and you had a Josh Downs drive, I think, in the third quarter, and there was the Tyler Warren touchdown. But aside from Pierce, Downs, and some Tyler Warren, who are, I think, clear matchup problems for the Texans, I thought that this offense didn't really have that much going for them. And again, I like the strategy of forcing Daniel Jones and those weapons to beat you with a neutralized Jonathan Taylor. Like, not force them to beat you, but at the same time, Jonathan Taylor is running it down your throat. Like, with a neutralized Jonathan Taylor, a running game that, however committed they may be to it, it's not that effective. And it's just Daniel Jones and the weapons forcing them to beat you. I like that as a strategy. Now, speaking of neutralized, did it seem like Michael Pittman Jr. and Derek Stingley Jr. just weren't even a part of this game? Like, I'm going to have to go back and look. I have not rewatched the game yet. Obviously have not looked at any all 22 or anything like that, or talked to anybody or seen anybody that's looked at the all 22. But Michael Pittman's got the one catch for 13 yards. But I just don't remember really seeing much of him or Stingley in this entire game. I don't remember seeing them much at all. It felt like they weren't even out there. And that, to be clear, is good for the Texans, if that's not clear enough. Having a cornerback neutralize an entire side of the field like that, to know that Stingley's either out there making plays or neutralizing an entire side of the field and hamstringing an offense like this one that likes to do as many different things as this one likes to do, to say, hey, we're just going to take this whole other thing away from you while we're stout against the run. That is major for the Texans, and specifically for the defense, but for the Texans overall. And I think is an easily underrated aspect of this game. The fact that you forgot that Michael Pittman and Derek Stingley were out there because Daniel Jones just wasn't even going to it. It wasn't there. Kamari Lassiter, the other cornerback on this team, he and Kalen Bullock gave up that touchdown to Pierce, if I'm remembering correctly. But it was such a great ball from Daniel Jones and such a great catch by Pierce that I couldn't even really be mad at the DBs for it. I couldn't even really be mad at them. I thought that Kamari Lassiter was an animal on corner blitzes, and Bullock had that tackle on Jonathan Taylor where it looks like he might have face masked him and it didn't get called. We'll get to officiating in a second because that was a big part of this game. Look, it is a part of the game that is not gonna be avoided. That is unavoidable. Whatever the correct word is that I'm looking for there, it is unavoidable. I know y'all have already seen it on social media. People talking about it. People are going to be talking about some of the calls that either were made or were not made in this game. We'll get to that in a second. But Bullock got away with that face mask, and I know the crew said that it was kind of open to interpretation if he actually kind of pulled down on the face mask, but he did get his fingers in there. And look, it was, aside from that, a good play by him to tackle Jonathan Taylor there. And then there was another Bullock deflection that I felt like stood out in this game. So they were their normal swarmy selves, right? The defensive backs in this game. Of course, you had Jalen Petrie back and you saw his impact on the game. He was also out there wearing the cap, the special helmet cap that they wear. I forget the actual name of it, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Very few players out there wearing, but you're seeing them more and more. He's coming back from the concussion and now gonna be wearing that safety cap. And I think that that's a good idea, especially after you've had a concussion or two in your career. But you saw his impact out there. The defensive backs, their normal swarmy selves. Now the rookie Jalen Reed, their safety Jalen Reed, ended up leaving this game. Looked like a forearm injury, and Miles Bryant came in for him. So that was disappointing to see for the rookie, because it looked like he's finally kind of getting his shot and was rising to the moment. Played decent against the Bills in his first real extended play, or his first real extended amount of defensive play, and was out there in this game and had the forearm injury. We'll see what the deal is with that, but you get Miles Bryant out there, steady, trustworthy. Uh, gave up a play. I'm trying to remember who they. I think he was one that gave up a Josh Downs play, but Josh Downs again is a matchup advantage for them, and couldn't really be too mad at him for that. But yeah, the defensive backs, their normal selves. Aziz Al-Shire left this game for a brief stretch, but came back, always flying around. And I thought that he was really good, especially in the run game in this one. Led the team in tackles, as you would expect him to, as the middle linebacker, but really just a tone setter on the defense, a tone setter on the best defense in the league. And I don't think you can say enough about the season that Aziz is having. Don't think you can say enough about this defensive line. And look, since I've just brought up the defensive line, I'm gonna go ahead and share this play. Shout out to everybody that's watching on YouTube, but also the people that are listening on the audio only platforms. I want to go ahead and encourage y'all to check us out on YouTube so you can kind of follow along with any kind of like the video components of the podcast. So let me do this. We'll take this banner down and on the fly here and go with I want to show this play. The defensive line, look, it is just this front is just incredible. Okay, and I spent a lot of time just now raving about the defensive backs and the linebackers, and or Aziz in particular, but I mean, it really starts up front, and that's not just Coach Speak. All right, it's not just Coach Speak when we when we talk about this. All right, so yeah, the one sack. All right, yeah, the one sack from Sheldon Rankins, and look, again, these guys up front are scary. Only had one sack in this game after having 8 against Josh Allen and the Bills last week, or the previous game, the Thursday night game against the Bills. But the one sack was really made by what for me has become an unsung hero on this defense. And look, sometimes he makes some boneheaded plays, costly plays, has some penalties here or there. But man, he is on the field because he is just a dog. Look at this play here, man. This is the Sheldon Rankins sack on Daniel Jones in the first quarter that is entirely created by this pick from Danico Autry. And you'll notice Danico Autry here lined up and yeah, basically in the B gap between the guard and the tackle, the right guard and the tackle. But watch what he's gonna do to the center to free up Sheldon Rankins here for this sack. And it's just beautiful. This isn't the best angle of it. It's just beautiful.
3rd and 4, Colts trying to convert. Jones can't get out of there. Houston makes him pay. The Texans get Sheldon Rankins home. I want you
Okay, yeah.
on the center by Danico Autry, which allows the Texans get Sheldon Rankins.
I want to apologize because I stepped on JJ here. I'm kind of illustrating this play perfectly. I didn't realize it went this far. But JJ Watt, Texans great. a future Hall of Famer is going to show you exactly how great of a move this actually is.
And Rankin's home. I want you to watch the pick here on the center by Danico Autry, which allows the wraparound, and then both edges push the pocket in. Daniel Jones has nowhere to go.
It really is like it really is like just awesome overall team play there, like as illustrated by JJ Watt. You got Danico Autry with the pick. You got the edges doing what they do, where they're pushing the pocket, or collapsing the pocket. And here comes Sheldon Rankins just there to clean it up, to handle business and clean it up. Just an incredible play. Or I would say very much an indicative play of how dangerous this front is and can be. So, yeah, man. Look, I'm sure y'all remember. Look, so that play is Danico Autry picking off the center, who really had a rough day dealing with this front. I'm sure y'all also remember Will Anderson Jr. lining up over the center, and on that one play where he's just sending them right into Daniel Jones's lap to ruin a third down play and force a punt. I marvel at this defense every time we get a chance to watch them play. I do not like this offense. I do not like it. I think that the folks that are critical of Nick Caley perhaps have some at this point, have a little bit of misguided critiques at this point, but all of it fair and valid, because I think of where it comes from. I think it comes from an honest place. It is not it's not an aesthetically pleasing offense, and it's not a particularly creative offense. It's actually kind of primitive. They don't do a whole lot. Like their pass blocking is better, and I think that their offensive line combination now that they got out there allows them to be a better, or have a better run game, or a run game closer to what they're looking for than what they had earlier in the season. But and when I had DJ Bieniemy on a couple of weeks ago from ESPN, he talked about how some of the route concepts are not all of that creative, and it's hard to watch them in the run game and feel like that's all that creative either. But I think that the defense is built to really carry this thing up to a certain point. Up to a certain point, you need your offense to cash in and to, at the very least, which I think they did a good job of it, a couple of points in this game with those long drives. At the very least, kind of just stay on the field and keep that defense rested, and allow them to go out there with fresh legs and the ability to pin their ears back, so to speak. But yeah, the offense is not great. I actually did like how they started the game. Long drive, doesn't end in a touchdown, ends in a field goal, but what did they get off there? 13 plays. They get off 13 plays, and you know, I liked most of it until I didn't, until they started shooting themselves in the foot. You get down there in the red zone, and this team is just kind of a disaster in the red zone, whether it's the play calling or the execution. All of it just leaves a lot to be desired. But to me, it is why you look for these small signs of the offense taking strides, because it doesn't really have to look perfect when you have a defense playing like this defense is playing. It really does not have to be a light show of any sort. That boring efficiency that they talk about, I feel like it's really an attainable formula for this team. I do believe that. I thought we saw that on the first drive. Again, ended in a field goal, ended up settling for a field goal in really, I think, disappointing fashion. But I did like the drive, the first 9 or 10 plays up until you get to that illegal formation. But the illegal formation stuff, that part is also weird, having formation issues and having to call a timeout because you got some confusion at the line of scrimmage. Like having that kind of stuff happen in the 12th game of the season is not great. The 12th game of the season when you had 10 weeks to prepare, or 10 weeks, 10 days to prepare, not great. So like the red zone stuff is an issue. I know that there are people that had issue with the the back to back Cade Stover direct snaps, the Stover cat, or no, not Stover cat, the Cade push, the Stover push. I mean, that's what they were doing for their short yardage, late down short yardage plays when they wanted to go QB sneak or tush push, anything like that. They go Cade Stover, which made sense. You got your quarterback just missed the last 3 games with a concussion. You don't want to be silly. Put him in harm's way. Cade Stover kind of built for it. Obviously, a tight end kind of built for that. You put in both of your fullbacks for the push. It had worked earlier in the game. They tried it later in the game, and it looked like it could have cost them. It looked like it could have cost them late in the game when they run the play on 3rd and 4th down, don't get it, turn the ball over on downs. Did that instead of going for the points at that point. And that was what was perplexing. Like I didn't have a problem with not taking the points. I know a lot of people wanted them to take the points, or there were people that wanted them to take the points. I didn't have a problem with them going for it as much as I did like one of those plays, and preferably the first one, like the 3rd down play. And I get it had been working early in the game, but the 3rd down play at that point I thought needed to go to a running back. Woody Marks went down in this game, had come back, shown you a couple of things. Nick Chubb is a complimentary back. I thought at that point, and they weren't running it well early in the game, but they stayed committed to it because they were able to. The defense allowed them to. And I thought later, just off of memory, it felt like they were running it better in the second half. And by the time they got to that sequence, I felt like they should have given the ball to a running back on the 3rd down play. And if they didn't get it, I wouldn't have hated the Stover push on 4th down, whether it worked or not. I just would have liked to have seen a running back get the ball on the 3rd down play. And I feel like they might have gotten it. I feel like there might not have been a 4th down play had they done that. So, yeah, some of the play calling, the red zone stuff, the offense itself overall, it is not, I don't like it. I'm just, I mean, I'm gonna just be straight up. I don't want to sugarcoat it at all. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But again, some things here and there that you're seeing, okay, that make you a little bit more encouraged about the offense, that they can be something close to what it is they're telling us that they're trying to be. All right. So we can the formation issues, the offensive play calling, that can lead us into the controversy. Okay. We can try to I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it is hard not to spend any time on it, hard not to acknowledge that this was a big part of the game. Swung the game in the Texans' favor. The Texans for sure got the benefit of a bad whistle on Sunday. They for sure got the benefit of a bad whistle. The refs missed the delay of game. And this is on the go-ahead touchdown drive where Nico Collins runs the reverse in for, I don't know, 8 yards or whatever it was. But the refs missed the delay of game. And then they made what I thought was a bad pass interference call on top of that. I think it was Kenny Moore who got called for it. Maybe Kenny Moore on Xavier Hutchinson, if I'm remembering that correctly. Whatever it wasn't a good call. It was not a good call, and it was on top of a missed call. So double whammy, what should have been a delay of game penalty on the Texans turns into And then the result of the play was a incomplete pass on third down turns into a pass interference call, a spot call on top of it, insult to injury. The boo birds from the Lucas Oil Stadium crowd, from the Colts fans, was justifiably loud and extended. They showed some crowd shots. Them people was mad, 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 boy, and I understood it. I understood it. Now I was over there. I was on my couch laughing about it, okay, because it benefited it benefited the team that I have the more of an interest in, and grew up hating the Colts. Grew up hating them with a passion, and that just never really gone away. I say grew up. I'm talking teenage years. Hated the Colts for a long time. Don't mind seeing them suffer, but this was objectively bad, and the Texans definitely got away with not one but two. I was gonna say got away with one. That's how the saying goes. They got away with two: the missed delay game and the bad pass interference call. Then there was the extra point on the Nico touchdown from Fairbairn, which I was not like in the moment. I was not convinced was a made kick. I was not convinced in the moment, nor am I convinced still to this moment now. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying benefited from a bad whistle there. So to sum all of this up, these are the things that the Texans I felt overcame on Sunday to win this game 20-16 against the Indianapolis Colts, on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. The formation issues at the line of scrimmage, and that cost them a timeout and at least two penalties. An odd strategy to end the first half that I didn't really get into, but and especially since they won the game, it didn't cost them. But when we talk about this offense, and this was less of a Nick Caley thing, I thought, and a little bit more of a D'Amico Ryans thing, and maybe a mix of both. And JJ Watt, credit to him, was very critical of this strategy. And when I critical, he was confused by it, as everybody was, and then ultimately critical by the end of it. But as it was happening in real time, it was like, what is their plan? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish here to end the half? Do they want points? Are they just going to settle? And it was like at various points, it looked like they wanted points and then they did, or they didn't want points and then they did, and then they didn't. It was an odd strategy to end the first half. I feel like the coaching staff deserves criticism for that. Didn't result in points. They didn't even get a kickoff. Didn't cost them ultimately, but they're going to need to really look at like they managed, and it was a different situation, but they managed the end of the first half against the Bills so well. Now they needed to respond with that drive after having given up that kickoff return against the Bills, but like they managed that so well. They need to look at that. Their end of half, end of game, critical game management stuff. There are people that I see that are real critical of it, and I think that they have valid criticisms based off of what we saw on Sunday. So they overcame that, their odd strategy in the first half. The explosive plays from Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and of course I mentioned the Tyler Warren play, overcame that. And then they had the luck on their side. Sometimes you get a bad whistle, and it's not because the refs prefer one team over another. It's not because they're playing favorites. It's just because they're doing a bad job, and that ends up benefiting one team over another. I think that's what happened here, and the Texans were on the right side of the bad whistle luck. So I think the Texans are in a good spot. That's both in the short term, facing the Chiefs next week, and in the long term and making the playoffs. We talked about this, how it's a race to four. They need to win four of their last six games. They won one of them. I would favor them in every one of their games going forward, except for the one that's coming up against the Chiefs. And I looked at the line; looks like the line's opening at -5. Chiefs -5.5. I think that's fair. I'm picking the Texans to win this game, but it's one that they could reasonably lose, right? But I'm looking at it, and there's just not a team on this schedule, not a team left on this schedule, and that's including the Chiefs. And especially after watching them handle business on the road against the Colts, watching them the previous game handle business at home against the Bills, there is not a team left on this schedule that scares me. Not at all. I could legit see anywhere from 10-7 to 12-5 at the end of the season. They could run the table. They really could. They really could. And this is mostly, I'm saying this mostly because of the fact that none of these teams scare me at all. Every single one of them is beatable. But to be fair, on the other side of that, I think that only one of the of these teams, I think only one of these games is not losable, if that makes sense. So every one of these teams is beatable, and only one of them do I think you just can't lose to, and that's the Raiders. That's the only one of these teams that they got left on the schedule that I think is just they're not gonna lose this game. Ain't no way in hell they lose to the Raiders. But everybody else, the Chiefs and the Chargers, those are the games that I value the most. And I think if you look at the math, odds and probability are the most valuable games. The division is in play now. I just think that the Jaguars have a better shot at it, or more so in the driver's seat. They are ahead of the division or at the top of the division at the time of this recording. I think they got a better shot at it, having the two games against the Colts left, and the Texans did a little bit of work on Sunday and beating them. But I talked about this on the radio last week. It could be the Jaguars and the Texans that end up hawking the Colts, and the Colts could be on the outside looking in. One of these two teams between the Texans and the Jaguars wins the division. The other one squeezes in as a wild card, and it's the Colts that's looking silly. But again, the Chiefs and the Chargers games are the ones that I've really wanted the most since I really started looking at this thing after they beat the Bills. And again, I don't see an opponent that the Texans can't beat. Let's see if the Texans can basically go out there and inch the Chiefs closer to the edge. I don't think if they beat the Chiefs that they straight up eliminate them next week. I don't think that that's actually how the math works. I think the Chiefs could maybe still get in if they win out. But the Texans got a chance to really make some noise here, cause some issues. Can you imagine that the Chiefs lose to the Texans next week? And it's already there. People talking about, hey, might they miss the playoffs for the first time in the Patrick Mahomes era? Texans got a chance to be at the forefront of that, and I find that delicious. I find that pretty damn exciting. I don't know about y'all. Sorry to the Foolish Club Media folks. If y'all don't know, the B Block Podcast is a partnership with Foolish Club Media. And the folks at Foolish Club Media are, let's call it Chiefs heavy. Look, it's a Chiefs podcast network that's trying to expand. That's actually expanding and doing more things by bringing your boy in. But yeah, so just calling it Chiefs heavy is actually an understatement. But I can just imagine how they must be feeling right now. Texans on the come up, look like a scary team, man, especially that defense. Exciting times, man. I'm Brandon Scott on the B Block Podcast. I appreciate everybody that tuned in, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on the audio platforms, wherever it is that you found us. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you're rating the podcast, reviewing the podcast, telling your people about said podcast. And look, until next time, man, y'all be good.